This is the first in a series of recordings of analysing the traditional modelling tools in Revit as they would apply in the conceptual massing environment, which operates in a very different way. So we're now in a massing family, or it could be an adaptive family. So let us start by creating some model lines, and I'm going to be lazy and do a rectangle instead of 4 lines. So we will just place that somewhere. We're in a 3D view, and escape. When I select those 4 lines, I can do that with one mouse click in this environment, which is very confusing, but you get used to it. Now I've selected those, so let's do create form, and it will automatically extrude those into a form, a very simple one. And you will notice that if I grab the shape handles, I can distort this form, and it's no longer an extrusion, so I'm going to press escape to get out of that. I can also pick one of the edges and distort that. Again, I'm going to escape, because that's not really what we're trying to do at the moment. What we're trying to do is make an extrusion and keep this as an extrusion. So let me pick this bottom edge here, and you will notice that it gives me the properties for the whole form, and they're pretty straightforward, not a lot to see there. One of the tools that I can use is lock profile, and as soon as I do that, this becomes locked as an extrusion. And if I pick this top surface, notice the little padlock there. I can't drag this to the side, and if I pick one of the edges and try and drag it, it just takes the whole side surface of that form. And you will notice that we also have a positive and negative offset. So if I drag this up here, now that is actually distorting, so let's Control Z on that. So that lock command is not as powerful as it ought to be. Now let us drag this top here, and you will notice that this positive and negative offset changes. And if we were to, let's just change that to a round number so that we can remember it. One little trick you need to know, whoops, I made that too small by a factor of 10. One little trick you need to know here is how it decides which is top and bottom with positive and negative offsets. So let's unlock that and pick the top surface. Notice it's no longer locked, so we have no offsets. I go up to lock profile, and now we have a positive offset of 0, a negative of 20,000. As soon as I drag the top, you will notice that we have a positive offset. So what's happened is something that is not very desirable in this situation, is that the top surface has become the baseline, and now we've got an offset either side of that, which is very confusing. Let us select this again, and it doesn't matter in this case where we select a surface, it selects effectively the whole form in terms of these commands up here. So we have a command called add edge. So when I click on that, I can add an edge to that and press escape to get out of that. I can select that edge, drag it out, and that changes the shape, changes the profile, the shape of the extrusion. I could also try and do add profile, but you will notice that that is grayed out. So I cannot add a horizontal profile around the middle. If this is unlocked, then I can add a profile, but that's not what we're after here. So I'm going to Control Z to get rid of that, and Control Z to get that back to being locked. It's locked. Okay, now one other little command that we have available to us here is the Edit Profile tool. So as soon as I click on that, it goes into sketch mode for the surface that's become the work plane of this extrusion, which happens to be now in the middle because we was on the top, but we've dragged the top up. So really it would have been better if it was down at the bottom. and it would have been if we had any edge or the surface at the bottom selected when we locked the extrusion. So critical little trick there. Right, so now what we can do is, having gone into this sketch, we can do fillet arc on this corner here, and notice we've got these little lock tangent icons there. Let's lock those so that that's always a tangent, whatever we do. And you will see that that has now changed the shape of the extrusion totally. So that is one method of making an extrusion. And the second method is to use a bunch of reference lines, which, if we go back to the draw command, you will see we've got model lines or reference lines, or planes as well, but that's irrelevant for this. So reference lines will behave very differently. So I select those four, create form, and we now get two choices. One is a form, one is a surface. So let's go with a form. And you will notice that this is automatically locked as an extrusion, and it has a positive and negative offset, and the baseline is down at the bottom where the reference planes were, reference lines rather, which is what you would expect. Change that, and the top positive offset changes. So a few things to notice. We no longer have an edit profile command available because this is being controlled by the reference lines. So you can't go into a sketch mode. We cannot add a profile. Well, that is to be expected. The add edge command here is available, but when I try and use it, we just get nothing happens. We just get the little no entry sign. So let's select this again. No, let us go to a wireframe just so we can see what's going on. Pick one of those reference planes, and reference lines rather, and drag it back, and oh, we've broken the form. That wasn't in the plan. Well, it was for my demo, but not what we wanted. So let's get that back. Now let us try going to reference fillet arc. See if we can get those lines. It doesn't seem to want to do that, and I suspect that it is something to do with those being level associated to level 1, and if I set my work plane, that is set to reference lines instead of level 1. Now maybe, just maybe, I can do it now. Oh, it's broken the form again, just like it did before. So that's a very different operation from working with model lines. So there is another method. We will show that later on, and I think that will do us.